If you could finish up your conversations or take them outside, that would be wonderful. Can you bring an image up? Or just the front-facing page that you play to show that it's ready to play? Okay. All right, I'm going to try to get everybody's attention again because it is 1:10 and we do need to get rolling again. Actually, it's 1:12 now. My name's Jeff Hayes. I lead wildfire risk reduction efforts for the Forest Service in Southern California. You heard this morning from the executive committee the importance of telling stories about wildfire risk reduction and its importance across Southern California. And conveniently, we have those stories ready for you to share, including one of the speakers you heard about in the morning. So we're going to show 3 videos. They're short videos, and they're from the 3 national forests that surround you here. One thing I'm going to call attention to start. So these are 3 videos about the 3 large fires in Southern California. You heard about 2 of them this morning. The success stories go on and on if you look for them. And one that has not been highlighted enough, when the devastation was occurring in Los Angeles, we could have had devastation throughout Southern California. So the incredible stories of how we prevented any other major fires during those extremely hazardous times really hasn't been told the way it needs to be told. And then every week we have stories that we could tell about how fuels treatments have helped us stop fires. We don't even have time to make all the stories that are out there, but we want to share a few of them because everybody heard about these fires in particular. You've heard about them this morning, so now we're going to watch a few videos about what happened from the eyes of the people who were involved and were there. So with that, please start playing the bridge fire video with some good volume.
There's no silver bullet in the wildfire crisis strategies and many components that come together to make a difference. It's really great to see places where that's occurring. Mechanical treatments, prescribed fire. We're a learning organization, and so immediately following the initial advance of the over 50,000 acre bridge fire, we use fuels treatment monitoring. We have a team organized to gather data, analyze data. Some of that data is going to help inform future projects.
My name is Rod Davidson. I am a fuels technician on the Angeles National Forest on the North Monument. My job is to plan hazardous fuels reduction projects and to implement them. Fuels treatment effectiveness monitoring is something we do once a fire goes through an area. We take an assessment of what was done before the fire, and then we take an assessment of what happened during the fire, and then what happened after the fire went through the area that we treated. Within the Big Pines Highway project, we had some high-value areas. One of them was the NASA JPL facility. They have a lot of expensive telescopes that they do a lot of research with. When we came through just beneath their property, it was very dense with oaks and brush and shrubs. And so what we did is we thinned the oaks out, we cut the brush, and we chipped everything. Later on, we came through and we did prescribed fire. When the fire came through, the fire basically went around the entire burned area and avoided everything that we had done within the fuels treatment. The areas where we don't do fuels treatments, you can see a complete difference, whereas the areas where we do fuels treatment, the effect of the fire is very minimal. We want it to come through here, especially with all this timber, as a nice understory burn, and that's basically burning all the chips on the ground, low intensity, and going through. So as you can see, the trees still have green in them in this area, and the ground is pretty much black. But the great thing is, this area gets a lot of moisture, so when we come back in, let's say, next spring, you won't even be able to tell there was a fire here.
The wildfire crisis strategy for the agency and our partners really is a call to action. The treatment work that happens in many ways and with many hands. We can't do this alone as an agency, and ultimately we're working with different jurisdictional levels who have responsibilities and homeowners who have responsibilities, and it takes a community to come together.
As Fire Safe Council representatives, we take the responsibility very seriously and working with all of those agencies to affect a lot of the fuel reduction projects, a lot of the prescribed burning that has gone on in our area. Some of those programs are not well received by the public. They think, why are firefighters putting fire on the ground? And why are they starting fires in our forests and around our communities? Because they can't see the bigger picture, that unless you are actively working to reduce those fuel loads and those kind of things, you have devastating effects of fire.
The Forest Service has been very active in clearing the woods here. And admittedly, I was one of the people I was somewhat opposed to some of that. As a recreational user, you come up here and you get set focused on the beauty. You just kind of fall in love with the area. So it's a beautiful space. The Forest Service has a much larger plan, and it's about the whole forest as a whole. Now, looking back to that, it's wow, like not understanding the wisdom of the Forest Service and what they were trying to accomplish with that clearing. I'm just very grateful that it was done, because if it was not done again, I guarantee you, I'm pretty sure these places would have burned out.
The proof of the work done is right outside the door here. You can physically see the hand lines and the edges of the prescribed work that was done out there, and that's where the major burn stopped.
So after the wildfire goes through, it's not the end of our relationship with the community. It's not going to be the end of the work on these fuels treatments. These fuels treatment proved to work. So it would be folly of us to just abandon them now because they proved to work.
Just because we've come in and done fuels treatment once before doesn't mean that the fuels are not going to get back. The vegetation's still going to come back and get thick. It's our job and our duty to make sure these things are on at least a 5-year cycle. That way we're minimizing the fuels on the ground and we're maintaining the landscape throughout the years. That way if we do have a fire like the bridge fire, then it's actually going to make a difference in the fuels.
It's going to take us quite some time to get to the scale of maintenance that we really need, and it's not like building a piece of infrastructure and walking away for 20, 30 years. Getting to a place where we want a landscape to be, whether it's a fuel break or some kind of defensible space, and then getting into a maintenance cycle, and that's going to take commitment. Not just agency commitment, it's community commitment, it's partner commitment, homeowner commitment. When you think about it in those terms, that helps speak to the commitment that we need to long-term investment.
The entirety of the Cleveland National Forest resides within a high-risk fire shed. Part of the reason why is because of the 20 million people that live in and around these wildlands. A good portion of those 20 million people across Southern California live in Orange, Riverside, and San Diego counties.
We have a very different fire problem in Southern California than the rest of those landscapes. We have way too much fire in Southern California.
Fire does not know boundaries. We have to try and put the treatments in the best places on the ground to get the best results. And sometimes that means crossing across jurisdictional boundaries, federal, state, local. So we work with the other agencies to try and get the work done collaboratively.
CAL FIRE has been in partnership with the Cleveland National Forest for a long time. This specific location, we've been working together for the past 5 years to achieve different fuel reduction projects in and around the Cleveland National Forest.
So hazardous fuels reduction would be removing any type of fuel or vegetation so they don't contribute to a large wildfire impacting life, property, or resource value. So we do this around communities. We do this to improve forest health. It makes our communities safer. It allows firefighters to have a strategic place to engage, anchor the fire, and then make our attacks on the fire.
The airport fire started in Orange County and quickly spread onto the Cleveland National Forest.
That day was clear, open skies. It did run the night before towards this direction. Limited resources were responding to the area because of the 3 other fires. The wind started picking up around 1:30, 2 o'clock, and started to make a run directly at Los Pinos Center and the hotshot camp.
So when the airport fire impacted our 2 field treatments here, the Memorial Field Break and the South Main Divide Field Break project, with the prior year's thinning and prescribed fire burning that we did, it allowed the intensities to not be so severe and allowed firefighters to actively engage the area safely and keep the fire from going into the communities below us here at Lake Elsinore proper. When we burned this in April, we were still getting flame lengths anywhere from 6 to 12 feet. So based off of footage from the actual airport fire impacting this area, you had flame lengths anywhere from 50 to 200 feet. And when it came across the road and hit our field break, it dropped that flame length intensity from, say 50 feet down to 6 or 8 feet. Anything over 8 to 12 feet, it's really hard to have firefighting crews engage with hand tools and hose and water and such. So by changing that characteristic, right, and then bringing those flame lengths down and taking some of that intensity out, that allowed the firefighters to come in and attack the fire.
We've treated this camp multiple years since 2007. The airport fire burned all the way around the treatment with minimal resources needed. We were able to limit the resources at Los Pinos and the hotshot camp to 1 engine, 2 engines with 1 crew, and we're able to save the facilities with what we had. If there was no fuel break here, everything here would have been burned over and not survivable.
If you can imagine, to the west of here, there were some 15,000 acres of black, complete devastation, and to the east of here, another 5,000 acres of complete black and devastation. And yet here, with the efforts of our fuel reduction and our fire suppression crews, we've managed to retain this island of green in this sea of high severity fire.
We do a lot of projects and you don't see this kind of outcome. You don't get to see the fruits of the labor. And in this case, we do. And so it's very rewarding to see and be a part, even though my piece is only one part of the puzzle, having everybody work together to achieve this kind of success.
If we hadn't done these treatments, I truly believe that this fire probably would have went up and over the ridge, all the way down into Lake Elsinore that first night of the fire. But it slowed it. And that's what we want to see with our field breaks, is slow the fire, change the fire behavior, give us a place to actively engage our folks safely and try to stop it there.
Over the course of the last few years, our prescribed fire acreage totals have increased, the amount of mechanical thinning and pile construction have increased. We're actually making a difference. That our efforts over the years, combined with additional influx of funding, have indeed made a tangible result that we can look at and take some pride in.
When you look across the west, you see high-risk fire sheds, sometimes adjacent to each other, sometimes separated by hundreds of miles. When you look at the San Bernardino National Forest, it's the only place where you see nothing but a series of overlapping high-risk fire sheds, which is pretty eerie and scary to me. And the reason that it maps that way is because of our dense population, our dense infrastructure, and what it would mean to actually have fire within our communities.
I look at the San Bernardino National Forest, very unique forest because we do have a lot of infrastructure. We have a lot of threatened and endangered species. Communities that are within the forest boundaries. There's just so much values that are at risk in this area.
And when we have those structures and values at risk, it heightens that need to be able to reduce the fuel loading and increase the forest health around those communities so that when a wildfire comes, it changes that fire behavior.
On the San Bernardino National Forest, we do a lot of hazardous fuels reductions, vegetation management. And we go through and we start putting fire in different techniques.
What we're trying to eliminate is those ladder fuels, right? Those fuels that connect, the surface to the canopy of our tree. This is why we limb part of the trees, why we cut those brush components down, right? Because we don't want them up underneath the tree. Should a fire come through, it's going to heat those canopies up. We lop those down, and we scatter them across away from the trees. And then at a later time when weather permits, we come through with a broadcast burn.
The purpose is to help rejuvenate the land, help break down the soils, the minerals and everything. We're trying to represent what the natives did. We're trying to represent what nature did with lightning. So we wanted to create as healthy of a forest as possible.
In order to move the needle to have healthier, more resilient forests, we've got to do more across a larger scale. And when we talk about paces, frankly, we've got to pick up the speed. For what we're seeing every year, fires going larger and larger, our efforts and our preventative work has to match that or, frankly, outpace that.
This particular project, the Angeles Oaks Fuels Reduction Project, it's an understory fuel break that the forest has been working on for several years as part of the community defense project for Angeles Oaks. Most of our firefighters, we live in and about these communities as well as work here, right? So we have a vested interest on this forest. This is our chance, our opportunity to be proactive, to try to see things ahead of these catastrophic fires.
Leading up to the line fire itself, the conditions here on the unit on the San Bernardino National Forest were critical to say the least. There is no more fire season, and it really is a fire year. And for us in Southern California, that really truly was what we were experiencing. It started just above one of our local communities of Highland, California, in the backyards of some homes and houses.
A fire where the line fire started was not what we wanted. It's one of our worst case scenarios for us. It's one of our nightmares. And it lived true.
We knew that the fire had a very high likelihood that it was going to get big and potentially impact the town of Running Springs or the community of Angeles Oaks. And if it kept getting bigger, beyond that, miles away, literally, the town of Big Bear. Around that same time, another fire started on the Angeles National Forest, the bridge fire. Immediately after that, another fire started on the Cleveland National Forest, the airport fire. At a certain point in time, anybody that was in the local area could look, and it literally looked like Armageddon. There were 3 mushroom clouds, the skies were dark, ash was falling miles around in the entire Southern California region, and it was from one of these 3 fires. And when you combine all 3 of them together, that's a very complex situation.
When I came on scene to the line fire, I knew that it was burning up towards our Angeles Oaks field break, and I was the only one up here from the area that had local knowledge, so I was able to go and tell the other resources that were from off forest where we should hold it and how we should go about getting it to come to this area by letting it burn in certain areas or by trying to stop it from burning hotter in other areas. And then I knew the ridges we needed to use to go all the way down to take it into the Santa Ana River because it's all part of our fuel break.
We only have a certain amount of resources. So now we all as management had to be very strategic on what resources we were going to send to all these fires because they all had a need. They all had a need.
It was coming up from the west and it was coming up some of these ridges with probably 100, 200 foot flame lengths. And when you're standing out here thinking, that's coming at you, what are you going to do to get in the way of it to try to slow it down? And when it finally hit the ridge and got all the way onto the top, it started slopping over. The next ridge to start backing down. Well, it ran into our fuel brakes and it ran out of ground fuel. It slowed it down to almost nothing.
And that's the nice thing about shaded fuel breaks is once they get to the top, because of the spacing between the treetops and because of the reduced vegetation and because of the prescribed burning that we've done, that fire can't survive in the treetop. It literally goes from a raging fire front, hits that fuel break, just drops right down to the ground, tries to find something to continue to burn, to eat, because fire's like an animal, and ends up just kind of petering out.
That fuel break system and that fuels work that's been done around that community has been very effective. Going back to the year 2020, we had a fire called the El Dorado fire, and Angeles Oaks was a key factor in protecting that community from the El Dorado fire. During the line fire, it was, I think, an even more critical role. The work that they were able to do in conjunction with some of the aircraft and leveraging the fuels work that was done in there, because of where the resources were at that specific time, we only had a certain amount of resources that were available and were in that area of Angeles Oaks.
If that work was not done, if we did not reduce that fuel loading, if we did not reduce those ladder fuels and whatnot, the fire would have ripped through Angeles Oaks, without a doubt.
We have really focused our program of work around how can we do more, and not necessarily with less, do more with more, and leveraging our partners to grow our capacity so that as land managers, we're doing those key treatments on the landscape. We have to do that together. Some of the partners that we work with are really instrumental. National Forest Foundation. A lot of the things they've been doing to help us in protecting our communities is either establishing new fuel breaks or maintaining fuel breaks. Angeles Oaks, we have seen the actual tangible critical results of.
Angeles Oaks project, I mean, it's been tested twice, and both fires have been repelled twice. And I think that kind of answers, the importance of doing this beforehand.
Fuel breaks aren't designed to stop fires. They're designed to moderate that fire behavior to give firefighters opportunities.
This wasn't just a one-time deal or a one-time project that was done just this year. This was years in the making.
What's really rewarding for me is seeing a wildfire come at it and seeing it work. Seeing the firefighters being able to go out there and get it taken care of. Protecting that community, protecting that forest.
We know that fire, it is not a matter of if, it is when it happens on the landscape. We have to be able to do work in order to help not only manage, protect our critical natural resources, but to keep communities, but most importantly, what we call our human capital, you, safe. I don't want to be responsible for wiping all that away without giving it my best shot, my best effort to make a difference. So I do my part. All the employees of the San Bernardino National Forest do our part. And we're hoping that as our community partners, and that means each and every one of you, because did I mention, living here, it's all our responsibility. And so in the words of Smokey, really it's only us that can do that critical preventative work here. And I'm gonna pull my piece of that.